And here we have lots of grinding rocks. That's interesting, these are bark. So this is cedar bark based. Oh, that's scary. And so these balls on the oak trees, valley oaks, are formed when a tiny wasp lays its eggs in the branches of the tree, and the tree's reaction to the eggs form galls, and wasp larvae grow inside. Once the larvae are grown, they tunnel out of the gall and fly away. Crazy, huh? Those are actually wasp egg sacs where the tree has basically formed the outer part, so it's a symbiotic relationship between the wasp and the tree and the oak tree. I'm probably pronouncing these wrong, but these homes are called umacha. They're constructed with incense cedar bark because it's resistant to decay. There's a center hole in the middle to allow smoke to escape when they had a fire on the inside, and the entrance was often covered with a deer hide. Let's look inside. That's interesting, these are bark. So this is cedar bark based. Oh, that's scary. And there's not much of a hole in this one, but I guess the smoke could escape pretty easily. Huh. Interesting. And out in front of the umacha is this construction that's called a chaka. And apparently this was used to store acorns. It was built up off the ground, either on a tree stump or a rock, using cedar or oak poles for support. Wild grapevines were woven around the poles to form walls. Cedar boughs and mugwort were used to protect the acorns from insects, birds, and rodents. Interesting. It's always good to keep your food away from where you sleep. So I believe this is a giant chain fern, which are important in basketry material. The dried roots dyed black by being buried in mud, and then they would weave black designs for baskets, and the young curled shoots were eaten raw by hunters so that animals would not detect their human scent. So that would be a madrone tree, which you can tell, I guess, by the peeling bark. They made a tea from the bark, roots, and leaves to treat colds. In late summer and fall, the white blossoms turn into green-red berries that are eaten raw, cooked, or dried. So remember that, madrone. You see these all over the place in California. And I guess the berries kind of look like that. There's some more information about the madrone tree. Yalelepa. Wonder how long that took. Anyways, there's number 6. Oh, sorry, number 5. Huh. That's weird. Is there more madrone? It looks sort of like a madrone, but it looks really diseased. And those, some kind of animal has been peeling off of those trees. Let's see. There's another madrone specimen. So here's marker number 6, which is talking about live canyon live oak. So I believe this right here is the live canyon oak. I'm not an expert on trees by any means, The easiest way to tell these trees apart from interior live oak is to look on the underside of the leaves. If there are tiny yellow hairs, it's a canyon oak. The Miwok collected and ate acorns from many different kinds of oaks. Anyways. So I believe this is a ponderosa pine. Apparently you can tell because it's also called wasa. It has three long needles in a bundle. So if you look at each one of these where the needles are coming out, although I see groups of 4, so hell if I know what they're talking about. Actually, most of them seem to be groups of 3. But I believe this is the right kind. Yeah. So I believe this tree right here is a sugar pine. It's quite tall. Apparently it can grow to 200 feet. This one's actually a baby if that's the case, because you can have a base that's 6 to 7 feet in diameter. That's probably like 2.5 feet. The cones from this tree contain nuts that the Miwok relished. And there's a lot more of these trees up at higher elevations. So here's number 10. It says, at the base of the dead madrone. So I guess this tree here is a dead madrone tree. And you can find kasa, which is leathery toothed leaves and bright red berries. Medicinal tea was made from the bark and leaves. Berries were boiled and baked in a deep, narrow earth oven. After baking, they were parched with coals in a basket and eaten. So those are growing basically out of the remains of the dead madrone tree. So number 11 is Douglas fir, which I believe is this one right here. And if you look, it has very short pine needles. It's a very tall tree. It says it's not a true. Oh, where did I see that? I guess not. It's not a true fir. That's what it says. And there's single needles surrounding the branch. Anyways, so I don't see a big one, but I believe this is an incense cedar, which it said that was the bark that was used on those the buildings in the village that we saw at the beginning. Actually, there's an example right there of one. Incense cedar. It's that little tree just to the right of my face. So number 12 here is soaproot, and I believe it's the little weed-looking things. Not sure how I can show that. I believe it's that right there in the center of the screen. Looks sort of like a tulip or something. That is soaproot. The underground bulbs covered with brown fibers, harvested with a digging stick. Let's see. Pulp was used. Pulp from the mashed bulbs was tossed into streams to temporarily stun fish. Huh? That sounds scary. Oh, okay. Used as soap and shampoo, though. Oh, this trail actually ends up right by the campground. There's my vehicle. There's one of those wasp balls where the tree forms the gall around the wasp. The eggs, essentially, from the wasp. It's kind of interesting. So I believe this building is called a hungi. It is ginormous. That's just the opening to it. It's closed right now. Yeah, hungi. Wish they had the pronunciation for it. These are the namesake of this historic park. They're grinding rocks. And here we have lots of grinding rocks. It's a massive rock face in the ground with many, many holes that have been ground into it. Let's see. It's the largest grinding rock in North America. They view the rock as a living thing. It embodies the seasons. Traditional Miwok homes. The land is a living thing. So these are the umacha, built of cedar poles tied with wild grapevines and covered with incense cedar bark. Dedicated to the first people of California. Traditional use of native plants in harmony with the land. Soap root for shampoo. Manzanita to cure a stomach ache. This is a California bay tree. You have to see the leaves.